So we have understood the usage of a single value selector. Like in this coupons variable, if I want to get the value of id, I do coupons dot id and I'll get the id. But in this case we are hard coding this id. What if the values are dynamic? For example, this is a coupon code and the coupon code determines the amount of discount that should be given to a user. So in this case the key will be dynamic. It will be created during the runtime. So we cannot just put the ID and get the discount. Depending on the user, the discount changes. For example, for this user Vishwas Pawar 001, it's 50% off, whereas for Sudhir Kumar 002 it's flat 20% off. So how do we attain this? This can be done with the help of a dynamic selector. So I'll extend the functionality of a single value selector with the dynamic selector. So to understand this use case, I'll just create a small function which determines the coupon identifier, and it takes an object that's a JSON object, and what it actually does is it appends all the fields present in that object. Like fname is the field, then object dot last name plus plus object dot id. And suppose there is a login object which gives the detail of a user, and it is in the form of JSON, something like fname equals to, I'll give it as Vishwas, then last name equal to, then ID is 001. So we have created a login object. Now what am I going to do is I'll call the coupon identifier function and pass the login object. So let's see what output do we get. Coupon identifier, let's pass the login object. Alright, there's some mistake with this function. Okay, so it seems that this is the error. It's not, this curly braces are not required. Instead we have to evaluate, so we need a round brace. Alright, so we have got the coupon generated, like it's the first name, the last name and the ID. So now since we have the coupon, what we need to do is we need to dynamically get the values associated with a coupon, right? And the coupon is generated dynamically. So here we have the coupon generated dynamically depending upon the login object coming to us. So what we can do is we'll do coupons and then in coupons we can not do as coupon identifier plugin. This will not work, but if we add a square bracket, so it gives us the value. So in case if you want to select dynamic values, like you do not know what key will be generated and it's determined at the runtime, you can just use a square bracket and insert the dynamic value. So it could be your variables, it could be vars dot, it could be the output of a function. So in this case we have extended the single value selector with the dynamic selector. So we are getting only a single value, and that is using a dynamic selector. Now let's dynamically select a single value with a namespace. And to demonstrate this, I have used an XML. This XML has countries as the root element, and there are two namespaces, India and US, and I have two fields, that is capital and currency. So let's try to select a single value with the namespace. So observe that I have kept namespace US and namespace India, and this is the dynamic data which tells which value do I need to select, like currency, capital. So now what we're gonna do is let's first change this to JSON for better readability. And now what I'll do is c dot countries, and in countries I want to select the currency. I want to get the currency, and this is the dynamic data. So how I'll do is dot, I'll select the namespace I want of India, the namespace is of India, and then I'll use a namespace selector, that is hash, and the data value will be dynamic. So for this to work, we need to add a dollar symbol and round brackets and then the data. So the data got evaluated to currency and we are getting the value as INR. Now suppose if I change this data from currency to capital, I get the capital. If I change the namespace to US, I get the US capital. So that is how we can dynamically select single value using the namespace. Now let's try the dynamic selector with the multi-value selector. For that I have a coupons XML which has multiple coupons, so it's collection of coupons. So if suppose tomorrow the root tag remains the same, it's coupons, but there are some dynamic values depending on which the payload is changing, like it could be recharge instead of coupon, and we have to evaluate that value. So directly hard coding it as coupons dot star coupon like we do in JSON. If we do JSON, cpns dot star coupon will give us an array, right? Okay, there is some problem. Okay, coupons cpns dot coupons then dot star coupon. Yeah, so we get this array. But what if this value keeps on changing and even the payload is coming is dynamic, it changes? So in such case we need to use a dynamic selector along with a multi-value selector. So how can we do that? What we'll do is coupon cpns dot coupons dot, now instead of this I'll add a dynamic selector and I'll do a multi-value selector by giving a dynamic value. So I already have the dynamic value in M and it's assigned as coupon, so I can right away pass that value as coupon. Sorry, it's M instead of coupon, we have to add M. So we get the values. Now if we just want the discount codes, we can do an ID on this. So by using this variable and a dynamic selector along with multi-value selector, we have made this process dynamic. Now the value of M over here is hard coded as a variable, but this can come in vars, or it can like vars dot M, so that value becomes dynamic. Now let's try with JSON as well. So this was for XML, let's try for JSON. Now in JSON you won't have such duplicated keys, but just for the sake of trying, we are trying it. Like there are two same keys, but the keys have different values. So let's try with JSON as well. So I'll add a key JSON, and what we'll do is coupons, okay, cpns dot, okay, cpns. Then what do we have? We have multiple keys, and those are represented by the JSON coupon. So this is the key that is appearing twice. So let's apply the multi-value selector on that variable, that is JSON coupon. Okay, we need to add this in bracket, and seems like I have made some mistake. Is the name same? Okay, so I am searching in the wrong variable. It's C instead of cpns, so it's C, and we get the values 20 and 60, which belong to this same key. Okay, now next case is where I want the attributes to use with the dynamic selector. For example, I want the value depending on the attribute that I pass. Suppose I can pass type, I can pass status, and I want the value associated with that attribute. So how can we do that? Let's just try it. Attribute, and then I'll use the XML payload, that is cpns dot coupons is the root element. Then we have a multi-value coupon because there are multiple coupons. So I'll use a multi-value selector, and you can see it's appearing like two IDs are there in those coupons. Now I want to select the attributes, and the attributes come under the ID tag. So let's do dot ID, and then add a dynamic selector, then an attribute selector, then to add the dynamic value we need to add a dollar symbol, and then the variable. So the variable is L, which has status, so I want the status. So if I add it, we get the two status, active and inactive. So one status, if we see, one status is active and other status is inactive. Suppose I want the type, so I can put type, and we get it as registered and unregistered. So in this case of attribute, we have used a multi-value selector, we used an attribute selector, we also used a dynamic selector, and the attribute selector is used with the dynamic selector. So in this way we can use dynamic selector with combination of a single value selector, multi-value selector, namespace selector, and the attribute selector. Now let's understand the descendant selector. If we add two dots after the payload, that becomes a descendant selector. So let's understand what actually the descendant selector is doing. So let's copy this payload and paste it. So what is descendant selector doing is, like, it comes to message 1, it says okay, it's nested, it again goes to message 2, it sees okay it's nested, and then it again goes to message 3 until the value is found. So this key has an associated value, so it will stop here and it will print the output. So it's making a recursive call. If you see, I'll prepare the JSON, and what is the value over here? It's hello world. Then it will come back and it will print this element like message 3 hello world. Then again it will print this part of the payload, and then it will print this part. So it has to add this, and then alright, and this will be an array because hello world has no key, so it has to be an array. So if you notice, what have we done? We have got the first output as hello world, means the first key that we got a value. Then the same thing gets printed, that is a key value pair. Then again a level up, so it starts from the bottom wherever it finds the final value, it starts from there and keeps on recursively calling until it reaches the top, and it does not print the top element. It just stops to a level, one level below the top element. So this is how the descendant operator works recursively, and the same can be seen over here. I have a nested payload, and I've done 2 dots in front of the nested payload. What we can see is hello world, and then the same payload, the message 3 payload, then again the message 2 payload. So we have the message 2 payload. So to demonstrate an example, I have an XML. So let's print an XML organization. Okay, so we have an organization, a collection of organization, and there are multiple organizations within it. So the organization has name, it has a SIN number, and a sub-organization. Sub-organization also has name and a SIN. So suppose if you want to print all the names in an organization, so yes, we can do it with the help of like MultiValue selector. Let's try to do with a MultiValue selector. JSON. Now I'll create another JSON and MV selector. Then we have organization. So dot organization dot organizations dot organization is a repeating element, so we'll use a MultiValue selector star organization. So we have an array dot name, so a single value selector will give me an array of all the names. Okay, so we got only 3 names, but the actual XML had more than 3 names. It also had a nested sub organization which had name in it. So this could not extract those name. It could extract only the root level name. Let's see it again. It was able to extract only the root level name. So this is the first name, it got the second name and the third name, and since it was a single value selector, it ignored the second value. It just took the first value, like Pulitzer, Jameson's and AMR were the values that we got. Only 3 values, whereas it should be, so there are 3 values, whereas there were how many names? 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7 names. So we got only 3 names. Now what if I want all the names? We can use a descendant selector over here. Let's descendant and let's put it as organization dot dot. So we have a descendant selector, and then I'll just add name. That's it. So what do we have? 1 2 3 4 5 6. So we have 6 names as opposed to the 7 names, because even this works as a single value selector which calls recursively, so it takes only the first value, and that is the reason it ignored the second value which was beneath the James INC, I suppose. Let's see which value it has ignored. Organization, okay, so it ignored the Jack INC value. So now what if I want to know some other values as well? So we can add them also, like I want to get the SIN number, so I can get the SIN number as well, all the SIN number, no matter how deeply the value is nested. So when to go with a descendant selector? So in case if you want to get the value of a key and you are not bothered where it is nested, under which element it is, you just want to get all the values no matter how deep it is nested, you can go with a descendant selector and just give the key whose value you are interested in. So that's how it makes very simple to get the values using descendant selector. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.